Do you have a problem with being criticized? Do you feel like criticism takes away all your power and you feel destroyed? Do you feel insecure when people criticize you or give you feedback in a way where they're telling you that you haven't done something that well? Well, if you do, then in this video, I want to show you how you can take criticism and use it to your own advantage. So how to deal with criticism? I used to be the guy who could not take criticism at all. Like at all. If someone would give me feedback on something, they would say, they would tell me how I could do something differently or better, I would get really defensive. I'd feel like that was a personal attack. I would feel like my ego was about to explode. And I wanted to defend it and protect it by any means necessary. When I would get criticism, my first reaction would be to defend my position. I'd be like, but no, you don't understand. You don't understand. You don't. Let me explain it to you what I meant and why you're wrong. And I would get all defensive about it and I just couldn't hear the person out. My frame of getting criticized, my frame of getting feedback, if it was negative, was that of it's an attack on me and I have to defend it. Well, as you can imagine, that really hindered my development and growth. Because you can't really grow if you can't take criticism, if you can't take feedback from people and use it to your own advantage. And it took me a long time to detach my ego from what I was doing. To be able to take criticism for what it is, a constructive feedback, and use it to my own advantage. And what I want to do today is show you how you can make that switch and use criticism to your advantage instead of trying to defend yourself when you get it. And I want to make my point with a story. When I was starting out, I was maybe 20 years old. I was starting out in business and in sales. I joined this insurance company. And one day, this huge agency had a meeting when there was like 500 people in one room. And the main guy came out and he said, well, we're going to do an exercise today. We need one volunteer that's going to do the entire sales presentation in front of everyone right here. And there were no volunteers. No one wanted to come out and expose themselves to, doing the presentation in front of all these people because they were just like, what's going to happen? The thought of being criticized in front of that amount of people was just too big for most people. So as you can imagine, I raised my hand. I'll do it. So I came out and started doing my presentation. And about 15 minutes later when I was done, I concluded, I closed my book, and I turned to the audience. And it was similar to a poodle meeting a Rottweiler. They ate me alive. We never saw a worse sales presentation in our life. You're sitting like you're in a bar. I could barely hear you. You didn't make any sense. I would never buy from you. And that went on and on and on. As you can imagine, this was not very pleasant to listen to. But what I've done was something very different than what most people would do and what I would do in the past as well. As they were speaking, as they were talking, I opened up my notebook and I wrote every single thing they had to say as criticism. Okay, you're sitting like in a bar, they could barely hear you, you weren't very convincing. And at the end, when they were done, about 30 minutes after, I had a list of things that I needed to work on. I detached my ego from what I was doing. I detached my ego from their criticism. I didn't take it as a personal attack on me, but I took it as feedback for me to work on. Then I said thank you and I went off the stage. 1 month later, the story repeated itself. We again had a meeting. Again, the same thing was asked, who's the volunteer? And you guessed it, I raised my hand. I went up and everyone was expecting, not again, this schmuck. But they didn't count on me preparing. Because in that month, I took that list and I worked on every single thing they said. I stopped sitting like I was in a bar. I sat elegantly. I spoke with determination and loud enough so everyone could hear me. And I started my presentation. when I was done, this time, the response was different. They all remained quiet. Their jaw dropped. And all I heard was... They actually clapped. They actually clapped to my presentation. They said, this is the best presentation we've ever seen in our lives. So I've used everything they said to work on. I've used their criticism as feedback, as something that I could work on. So if you want to change how you perceive criticism, try to perceive it as someone giving you feedback what to work on. When someone is giving you criticism, when someone is giving you feedback, don't get defensive. Don't try to defend your position. Don't allow wanting to be right to rob you of being good. Become desensitized in terms of how you feel about what people are saying. I understand that there are some a-holes that are gonna just, criticize you for no reason, but you gotta make a distinction between those and those who are actually giving you feedback. You gotta use your brain to determine whether or not someone is actually giving you feedback or if someone is just being mean. What most people do when they make a mistake is they treat everyone who's giving them feedback and criticism as being mean. But you don't want to do that. When you get criticism, jot it down somewhere. Make a list out of it of things that you want to work on and go to work. And when you learn to take criticism and feedback as something to work on and you make these incremental shifts, you'll just become so good at whatever you're doing. If it's work, if it's something personal, if your partner is giving you feedback in a relationship, use it. Don't get defensive, because defensiveness is just gonna, protect your status quo, your position where you're at. But if you allow yourself to drop the ego and really listen to what the person is saying, you'll go far. So don't treat criticism as insults. Make that distinction. Understand that there is a difference between someone just being an a-hole, insulting you, and someone giving you criticism that you can use to get better. Use your mind with this, and you'll go far.